Be the envy of the neighborhood. 860 KKAT, where the grass is always greener. Welcome to Gardening Utah. Here's composter and show hoster, Jana Francis.
Welcome to Gardening Utah. I'm your host, Jana Francis. Every week here on Gardening Utah, we give you gardening inspiration and advice from experts across the state. We talk about vegetables, flowers, trees, shrubs, and of course, your lawn. Thank you for listening. I hope this show is something that you'll look forward to checking in with every week. Whether you're a beginner or an expert, Gardening Utah aims to inspire you and keep you in the know of what tasks you should be accomplishing in your yard and meet amazing, informative experts along the way. This show airs on the radio on the weekends here in Utah at 10 a.m. on 860 AM KKAT, and episodes drop every weekend on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, so hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. On today's show, we have Misti Mathis with Harvest Gold Organics, and we're going to do something a little bit differently. She is going to be interviewing one of their customers who has had an extraordinary experience with Harvest Gold Organics, and it's pretty fascinating, motivating, and super inspirational, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but I wanted to share something with you. It has been exactly 1 year ago today, as I record this show, that I recorded the very first episode of Gardening Utah. I'm just one of those sentimental people, so it occurred to me today as I was recording, oh my goodness, it was exactly a year ago today that I recorded the very first episode in the KCAT studio, which of course we're not doing during the pandemic, but I was with Lorene Boutner of Mill Creek Gardens, and we were recording the very first episode of Gardening Utah. So how fun was that? Anyway, kind of crazy. Thanks for coming on the ride with me, and I hope that you really enjoy this show and have learned a lot and gotten to know a lot of the amazing guests and, well, you know, experts around Utah. I personally have had so much fun getting to know these people, and what a riot to even call so many of them excellent friends now. So it's just been really fun to put this show together, and I've gotten to learn so much right along with all of you. So thanks for coming along the ride with me. Okay, so we have a lot to get to. I'm going to give you a coupon code. I'm going to tell you how to enter our giveaway for a 4x8 raised garden box. But first, the tip of the week.
860 KKAT with your Gardening Utah tip of the week.
My tip of the week is, now is the perfect time to plant trees. Now, we're seeing a lot of questions lately asking, is it too early to plant trees? Well, no, it is the perfect time, and here is why. Trees are best planted when they're still dormant and have tight, unopened buds in the early to mid-spring after the soil has thawed, which is about now. And cool temperatures and good soil moisture in the spring helps the trees get established. Fall is also a great time to plant trees, but watering is really critical if the fall and especially through the winter is dry. Now, summer planting can be successful, but the hot temperatures and the dry conditions make it harder for them to survive. Now, if you're out there and you see any bare root trees, those should only be planted now in the spring while they're still dormant. So get out there, get those trees planted. It's the perfect time of year.
And that's your Gardening Utah tip of the week. Brought to you by The Advocates. If you're in an accident, you deserve an advocate. Call 801-355-5550 or visit utahadvocates.com. Never miss a tip for your garden and never miss an episode. The Gardening Utah Podcast with Jana Francis on 860 KKAT.
Speaking of planting trees, I wanted to remind you that if your trees are balled and burlapped, where they've got the root ball tightly wrapped in burlap and it's held in place with twine and possibly and most likely a wire basket as well, remember to remove all of the packing materials. That includes the twine, that includes the burlap, and the wire basket. In order to establish properly, the roots must quickly grow from the root ball into the surrounding soil for the tree to do well. And the burlap and the pots and the wire baskets get in the way of this growth. And it can be tricky when you're planting them. And if the root ball is broken and loose, remove the packing materials really carefully to try to keep that root ball together. And as you plant it, you can backfill with soil as you remove the packing materials, and that helps keep that root ball intact. And believe me, this is very, very important. And one of the reasons I decided to reiterate it today was because of a personal experience. When we landscaped our yard about 12 years ago, we spent a lot of money on trees and really big ornamentals. And unfortunately, the landscaping crew that planted the trees did not remove any of the wire baskets. Now, they did say, well, we're just going to cut holes in the burlap and the roots will quickly grow right through them. But that's not really what happened. And it kind of ruined most of my trees. In fact, over, 10 to 12 years of having these trees growing, we've lost a lot of them. And it's really, really sad. And I wasn't 100% sure the reason why I lost so many trees over the years. And I had a special visitor at my garden last week, the one and only Cameron Alcott. And, you've heard him on the show many times from progressiveplants.com, and he knows pretty much everything about everything. And he looked at my trees and he just shook his head. He said, I can't believe they left those in the baskets. When those roots start to grow bigger and bigger year after year after year, they get strangled by those wires. And so he was pretty disappointed. And of course, I was disappointed that they were planted in those baskets. And again, I remember being told, well, this is what we're supposed to do, and we just leave it in the burlap. Well, here's the thing. When you know better, you do better, and I'm never going to let that happen again. And so I'm telling you so that you don't let that happen again. Don't lose trees like I did, I'm telling you. Anyway, okay, a couple quick housekeeping things and ways to save money. I wanted to remind you of the coupon code that we have just for Gardening Utah listeners that works at trueleafmarket.com. You can get your seeds, everything you need for this year, your wildflower seeds, your grass seeds, your clover seeds, anything that you need to plant. Check it out, trueleafmarket.com, a Utah company. And they have a promo code right now where you can get $10 off a $50 order using the code JANA10. So JANA10, and that will give you $10 off a $50 order at trueleafmarket.com. And if you missed the episode, they were last week's episode 40 of Gardening Utah, and we talked a lot about the difference between hybrid seeds and heirloom seeds, and it was just fascinating. So all about seeds, last week's episode, and you can definitely listen, but check it out on trueleafmarket.com and use that code and tell your friends because it is a really great deal. Now, we have been talking about our contest, our giveaway of the garden box from Q&R Box Gardens. We are giving away a 4x8 raised garden box, and it is gorgeous. So you have this month to enter to win that, and here is where you go. Go to 860amkkat.com and click the word contests. And once you go into there, you will find the way that you can enter the giveaway. So, go to 860amkkat.com and click the word contests, and you will be able to enter to win the 4x8 garden box from Q&R Box Gardens. They're gorgeous and amazing. And by the way, they're going to be our guests on next week's episode. So I'm pretty stoked about that. Before we get into it with the guest of today's show, we are going to quickly talk about some of the things that you can do this month in the garden, because now we're getting that time of year where there's a lot more things that we can be doing outside. So we're going to get back to doing some pretty task-oriented tips that will make sure that you don't miss a step in the garden. So one is roses. So many people are asking, when is it time to prune roses? Now looking here at mid-March, but it's getting very, very close. So you could probably get away with doing it now, but we want to make sure we're not going to have any real major change in the weather, because once you prune them back, you are encouraging them to grow. Another thing you can be doing right now, if you want to plant some vegetables or some seeds, you can definitely get peas in the ground. You can get radishes, any cold season vegetable like lettuce, spinach, onions, etc. Now you want to make sure going into the growing season that you get your fruit trees pruned. Make sure your apples, pears, peaches, cherries, apricots, and plums, make sure that those are all pruned back. And if you have to get a little refresher on how to do it, there are a few episodes back, we had Alex Grover on the show, and he talked us through the right ways to prune your fruit trees. So you can take a listen to that episode and make sure that you're going into that pruning with confidence that you're doing it right. It's also a good time to put horticulture oil on your fruit trees. Just make sure that they're at bud break and they're still dormant, and that will help control overwintering insects. And in late March, you can put some pre-emergent herbicide down to control annual weeds like crabgrass and spurge in your lawn. And as always, it is an amazing time at all times to add organic matter to your soil. There's never a bad time to do that, so anytime you can add compost mulch to your vegetable garden or your flower beds, it's a great time to build and amend the soil. Now, speaking of amending soil, we have a special guest today, and we're doing the show just a little bit differently in that you're going to be listening to an interview from a real-life customer that used Harvest Gold soil conditioner. Now, what we're going to be hearing today is Misti Mathis from Harvest Gold Organics, and she is interviewing a customer of theirs that had used Harvest Gold Organics all around their yard and garden and lawn, and this customer describes exactly her experience with Harvest Gold, and it's pretty fascinating, and we just wanted to share this because it is kind of a new and upcoming soil conditioner, a premium soil conditioner, and I have some myself. Really excited to have it because it's the type of soil conditioner that is organic, it is safe for pets, it's non-toxic, it's kid-friendly, and it's approved for organic gardening, and it addresses just very specific nutrient deficiencies, and you can reduce your water use, and it loosens heavy clay soil. You can find out more at harvestgoldorganics.com, and we will jump into this interview now.
What did you expect when you ordered Harvest Gold for the first time?
Well, at first I wasn't really sure that everything it says it was going to do, it was going to do. It seemed too good to be true, like a lot of products propose themselves to be. But I followed the directions, and I was in the process of putting down new sod in my front yard, and I took a bucket of it out to the people who were laying the sod, and I said, look, this is supposed to help new growth in my grass and help break down the clay in the soil so that the new grass can take hold and be healthier. And when you put down the new dirt, I want you to add a layer of this on top of it. And they said, okay, we're going to do it. So I didn't know what to expect, whether it was going to work or not, but I thought this was a perfect opportunity. And it turned out that within a very short period of time, even the owner of the company who did the sod came back and said he's never seen grass turn that green, that quick, and take hold in a yard that miraculously, actually.
Wow.
And so 2 weeks later, we got Yard of the Month for our HOA. So I've got to credit Harvest Gold for helping in that process.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is so awesome. And I'm glad that we were able to exceed expectations.
Yeah.
So just again, I know you said you used it in your sod, but tell me all the areas that you used the Harvest Gold in.
Well, I used to buy like Miracle Grow because their commercials always said it's going to make this plant grow faster and hardier, and they'd show pictures of different things. Mm-hmm. And I'd tried various other products who made the same claims that Harvest Gold was making. But the texture of Harvest Gold seemed different. And when I saw what it did in my yard, I thought if it can do that in my grass after years of not having any grass grow there, I thought I'm going to try it in my flower beds. And so when I'd put new soil in with flower beds and plant new plants, I'd mix the dirt in with a handful of the Harvest Gold, and it made a new plant establish itself healthier and more, and have the ability to grow better and stronger than if I'd not done anything, because the dirt here is so It balls up if you don't add something to it, but this truly worked. So I've used it in all of my flower beds, and even did an experiment on the side of my house where, just because I didn't really know, I wanted to see if it really worked. So half of it I put Harvest Gold in, the other half I didn't add the Harvest Gold, and then I planted lavender, and you can see the difference in the plants just by looking at them. There's a defining line of what this product does. It's amazing.
Yeah.
That's all I can. Yeah, it's amazing.
So tell me about did you follow the application instructions that were on the back of the bag? Did you kind of just take a guess a little bit, and how you were using it? Did it seem easy to use?
Well, I'm really bad about not following directions that are given to me on anything, whether it's putting a table together or, fertilizer for the yard or anything. So, but I did read it, and I thought, this sounds really complicated, I'll be honest.
Okay.
And so I just decided to do it on my own, based on my total lack of knowledge and just wanting to take a chance to see if it would work. And so I keep a little tiny 2-inch pot inside the bucket, and I just use that to, and stir it in there, and whatever I'm doing works. So it's not on the back of the bag, but it works.
Perfect.
So, but even though this is going, I'll tell you.
No, go ahead.
I think the directions can be simplified.
Okay, I agree. That's good to hear feedback, though.
Yeah, I think the directions can be simplified.
Well, and I think what we needed to just change it to, because what we did have before was just 1 part per 9 parts. Of soil. And I think that's simple, and I think you can figure out your ratios from there. Instead of trying to give all the additional extra.
Depending upon how big the area is.
Right.
Where, wherever you're going to plant whatever, whether it's vegetables or flowers or herbs.
So you just kind of eyeballed it?
I just kind of eyeballed it.
Okay.
And like these, I also put them in my pots.
Okay.
And these have all had Harvest Gold put in them. And granted, the time of year is changing, but this aloe vera plant, when I put the Harvest Gold in it started making its own babies. And there's like 4 new plants shooting off of it. So it helps establish new growth too, which we didn't know.
That's amazing. That's awesome. So between the sod, and I'll ask you this a couple different ways.
That's okay.
For the sod, how long was it before you really knew that it was starting to do what you had
expected it to do? I would say a couple of weeks, maybe 14 days. We were having to water it every day. That was the instructions. The city gave us permission. And I kept thinking I didn't really know what to expect. But within 14 days, the owner came back and said they have a way they can do it by pulling on the grass to test to see if there's tension. And if there's tension when you pull on it, it means it's established its root system. And it had already done that in 2 weeks when it usually takes 30 days.
Wow.
So,
So by then you knew it was working.
Exactly.
That's great. So then when in your raised beds, I know you planted some different things, your vegetables, and then you had some lavender.
Yeah.
But how long before you had put it in the soil there in the raised beds did you feel like you started to notice a difference?
The raised beds, it was probably less than 10 days, because the plants were in a protected area and didn't have to worry about like a big anything, like a large area like grass affecting it. But the raised beds and the pots, like that over there, I just planted a week ago, and the plants were like this big.
Oh, wow.
And so that's lettuce. And, this has Harvest Gold in it, and it's tolerated all the temperature changes. And so 10 days at the most.
Okay.
And it really depends on the variety of what you're planting. And you have to, you still have to battle bugs and stuff like that. But I have noticed that if everything in the bed with the dirt has Harvest Gold mixed with it, for some reason it seems like the bugs leave it alone more so than if I'd not put that additive in there.
Oh, wow. That's great. Because they're hardier, plants now, and they're not susceptible as much to those types of things. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. So then, have you ever tried anything else like Harvest Gold? Have you tried any other types of soil conditioners or anything else that you thought? I know you mentioned Miracle Grow, but have you tried anything else that you've added into planting before that you've tried?
Well, I have. I don't remember the names, but one guy that worked at a local chain of plant stores came over, and I had this whole big bed here and asked him, what do I need to do to condition this soil? And he said, well, you need to add, there's like 4 different things of layers of stuff. And so I did it, but it's like multiple layers of things like cotton burrs and manure and other things like that he said that's exactly what it needed to condition the soil, but it didn't change the way anything grew. It was expensive because I had to buy all these bags and you do all these layers. And he said before, and this is all new turf too, and it's still green.
Right.
Which is, if you look at my neighbors, this whole thing has Harvest Gold in it. But to have one product that you can use on everything and not have to worry about, well, this layer goes here and this layer goes that, Harvest Gold does it, and it's worth, you get what you pay for.
Do you feel like it simplified that process?
Oh, by far. Because a couple of years ago, before I had this turf is new but this summer. A couple of years ago, I'd have places pop up where it just looked like roots had taken over from somewhere, and it was just bare. Then there was grass, and then there was bare spots. And, he told me, one of the garden guys came and said, well, just throw some good new dirt on it and some manure, and, it'll come back. Well, that didn't happen, but I spent all that money just throwing that stuff out there, and nothing changed until I got the Harvest Gold.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So people need to realize that you don't have to have 15 different products to do what you need to do. That one product takes care of everything.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's what I wanted to hear. So what makes you feel good about using Harvest Gold? Like, is there anything about how the product, like what it's made of, or the fact that it's organic, or any of that, does that make you feel good, especially with your pets, being outdoors, knowing that it's chemical free? What makes you feel good about using the product besides the things that it can do?
It takes away the worry that my dogs are not going to get sick if they walk on it, or that I'm not going to get sick because I put my hands in it and I have maybe a cut on my hand, or a bird, or a squirrel or a rabbit, despite the fact I don't want them in my yard, but mainly my dogs like to be out here with me, and it shows you, and you can demonstrate that it takes care of everything without having to put chemicals on it. And you know that especially if it's something you're going to eat, that what you're putting in your body you're not adding the chemicals to it. It doesn't have a strong odor, which is a big thing for me because it's usually right in your face when you're planting, and I can hold it right up next to me and I don't smell anything. The texture of it is easier to work with because I can mix it in with the dirt a little at a time, and so that's a big.
Did anybody else besides, so I want to re-ask you the same question and have you repeat about your landscaper owner, but who all noticed the results that you were getting from your sod, your garden, or your potted plants?
Well, my landscape company, who's been doing my yard for 4 or 5 years, and by doing my yard, I mean they mow and edge and they put the fertilizer down and do all of that stuff. The guys that put the turf down were the first ones that actually came to me and said, we've never seen turf establish itself this good. What did you tell my crew that's different than how we would normally tell them what to do? And I said, I gave them an extra step and said, I want you to mix this Harvest Gold in with the dirt before you put the new turf on top of it to help establish it. My neighbors would come over and take pictures. They'd knock on the door and ask if they could take pictures. But then the day the lady came to my door from our HOA, which is the largest in Frisco, and told me that we had won Yard of the Month, and they left it in the yard for 6 weeks because it still stayed so good that, so random strangers knocking on the door asking if they can take a picture of my grass. I'm like, okay, who? And they'd say, who did this? And I said, well, this is who did it, but this is why it's like this. So every time I had the opportunity, I'd tell them. And, it's made a huge difference.
That's awesome. So strangers and the landscaper, and I'm assuming Eric.
Oh, yeah. And even in a time when, people are afraid to be around people they don't know with the pandemic going on. Everybody had a mask on, so there was no problem with that. But they all wanted to be outside doing something, and they were motivated by what this product did in my yard because they wanted to see it in theirs.
Wow, that's very big testimony right there. So when you did get your award, your HOA award, how did that make you feel?
Well, I'd gotten it once. I'd gotten it a couple of times before. We've lived in this house since 2007. But it was different this year because of all the things that I personally had taken action on that I really thought made a difference. And it makes you, if it works this good, it makes you want to continue doing it and to maybe try it in other things, like putting it more around the roots of trees to see if it helps in the root system with trees. But I'm using it everywhere there's dirt.
Did it give you some sense of satisfaction?
It made me realize that because of all the things I'd tried in the past to get something to grow at all or to change the landscape of what my yard looked like, it made me realize that all of that money that I'd wasted in the past was totally made up when I bought the Harvest Gold, because it was well worth what I paid for, because it shows in what my yard looks like.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great feeling, right?
Yeah.
You're like, I no more spending all that.
No, and it made me feel like, okay, I made the right decision finally.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, I like it.
That's great. What is the best thing that you think about, Harvest Gold as a product, or, we're still building our brand, obviously. Mm-hmm. We're still very new. Is there anything else that... Besides, is it really just the fact that it says what it says it can do, or the fact that it's organic, or both of those things together? What is it that makes you feel, what do you think is the best thing about the product itself?
The fact that it's easy to work with, and it takes us only a small amount to mix with whatever you're planting. It has so many ways you can use it. You can dig a hole and plant a plant and just add it to the dirt around it and then put dirt over it. Or you can do a whole yard with it. Mm-hmm. It's one product that does multiple things, but it gives me the confidence that I know once it's down there, it's going to do its job without me worrying about it. And the fact that it's organic and it's not going to harm me or my neighbors or my friends or my dogs, and it has no chemical odor, and it, obviously I wouldn't be sitting here telling you what it does if I didn't believe it.
Right. Perfect. Thank you. And obviously you've already said this, but just one last formal question is, will you continue to use it and recommend it to your friends or neighbors?
Oh, absolutely. It's, I think having it in sizes that are easy for people to manage is key. Mm-hmm. And if people are not sure if they are going to like it or not, like they want to test try it, kind of like I was in the beginning, that they have it available in smaller containers just so they can try it and see. And I think it's a good product that it sells itself, because I still to this day have people come into my door saying, "What did you do?" They say, "I see you out here working all the time, but it's different this year. What did you do?" And so I tell them, they ask me, "Well, where do you get it?" And I say, "Well, I ordered online and here's the name. And there's different sizes available." I said, "If you need some help, I'll come show you how to do it my way."
That's awesome. Well, that's great, because you've become like a brand ambassador for it.
I love it.
Didn't even know it.
No, I mean, and I wasn't even thinking about that,
Yeah.
But the grass, I'm telling you, if you look around at my neighbor's grass, nobody's is still green like this.
I walked up, I was shocked at how green it is.
Yeah, I'm like, and it's brand new still. This grass was only put in July, August.
And usually there are spots that don't take when you put down sod, and you have 0 spots. Mm-mm. 0.
And I came out and made sure that they understood how to put it down, and I said, if at that time I had a big bag of it, and I says, if you run out, I've got another bag in the garage, so don't feel like you have to, be skimpy on it.
Yeah.
Let's do it like I asked you to do it. And then, the rain took over, and I'm still impressed when I come out here and see that it's done what it's done.
Yeah.
It's made my life a lot easier.
And now you have this to enjoy.
Oh, yeah. And my flowers are still blooming.
Mm-hmm. They still are. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, I think that's all my questions.
Okay.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Gardening Utah. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. As always, let me know what you'd like to see on the show. You can message me on Instagram. Our handle is @GardeningUtah. Or if you hit up the episode notes on Apple Podcast or Spotify, you can see links to a lot of things that we talked about today. And you can link over to our social media and check out our Instagram, our Facebook, and send us a message that way as well. And while you're there, make sure you're subscribed to the show. And you know what? Give me a 5-star rating. I would love you for it. And if you give us a review and give us some love, we'll give it right back to you and read it on the show. Thanks again for listening. Shout out to our producer, Lambo. I'm Jana Francis. We'll see you next week here on Gardening Utah. And remember, grow big or go home.
When you're ready to grow big or go home, make your neighbors green with envy. Get the Gardening in Utah podcast, Gardening Utah. Available wherever you get your podcasts and at 860kkat.com/garden.
We are supported by ProgressivePlants.com. ProgressivePlants.com. They are your neighbors next door and experts at helping you choose the perfect and unique plants that will thrive in your location. Progressive Plants is passionate about helping homeowners, expert gardeners, novices alike choose the correct plant for your soil. They don't just grow plants, they know plants. Let Progressive Plants help you today. Just go to ProgressivePlants.com and check out their wide selection. You can also go to the Design tab and look at the expert expert designers that they have that can help you plan your perfect yard. Visit progressiveplants.com today.